diplomacy is happening. We had a conversation between U.S. Secretary of State and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. That conversation apparently went all right, and they agreed to more talks. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is going to travel to Moscow to meet with Putin soon. This, I think, is maybe one of the more significant things that actually developed on the tensions between the West and Russia, because if Scholz is planning on going to Moscow, he must think that there's a pretty low chance of an invasion of Ukraine, and so this seems to me to be a pretty good sign. And if Scholz again is willing to make some kind of deal with Moscow, like the U.S. can negotiate with Russia over the INF and the missile issues, and then Germany, France, or another country can negotiate and make a deal over the Ukraine issue, that could be a real maybe solution to this problem. Let's see. Next up, we have Erdogan, that is the president of Turkey, traveling to Ukraine, and he has said a few times that he believes he's in a unique position to negotiate on this crisis. I'm not so sure that's the case, and how helpful he would be if he's actually going, or he did go to Ukraine, how helpful he's actually going to be in his travels to Ukraine. Of course, Turkey has sold drones, armed drones, their advanced drones to Ukraine. And so Russia may not be too happy with that. At the same time, Turkey has purchased the Russian S-400 missile system. And so of countries that do hold a relationship with both Ukraine and Russia, Turkey is kind of unique in that position, and maybe there is some room there. Although I did see that Erdogan signed some kind of free trade or some kind of trade agreement with Ukraine while he was visiting, and so it may be that the diplomacy was just a cover for some kind of economic agreement or some other project he was working on. Last up, we have a scheduled call between the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is facing quite the scandal at home, and the Russian President Vladimir Putin. I believe this conversation actually did happen. I don't think anything really came from it. At least all the press releases I saw seemed like pretty boilerplate rhetoric. We discussed resolving the crisis diplomatically. We voiced our concerns and things like that. But that Putin remains diplomatically engaged with European states. I think Russia, I guess, still does see a path there. And all of this, I think, really to me suggests that the likelihood of invasion of Russia into Ukraine is going down quite a bit. And we even have the Biden administration announcing that they are going to stop using the term imminent to describe a potential Russian invasion of Ukraine. And this seems maybe to come at the request or begging or insulting from the Ukrainian government that we've seen over the past few days, saying that absolutely wasn't the case. And a real step down from the White House. Now, the Jen Psaki, I think I read her statement was something along the lines of, I think an official has used it once or twice, and we may have said it, but and really they were really building up the hype and the war propaganda against Russia, and so the fact that they have to turn it down a little bit is some good news, but taking no responsibility for lying to the American people about that is disturbing. Now, the last thing I want to talk about on the Ukraine issue is Ukrainian NATO membership. And the reason I didn't want to get into this before is because I want to break it down all right here in relation to this Josh Hawley statement, who's a senator from Missouri. So Ukraine isn't going to join NATO anytime soon. It would require approval of all 30 now, NATO member states. For example, Greece prevented for a significant amount of time and actually required North Macedonia to change the name of its country, officially change the name of its country to join NATO before they approved the NATO membership for North Macedonia. And so the idea that then Germany, say, is going to approve NATO membership for Ukraine, which is actively fighting a civil war and claims a large chunk of territory that now belongs to Russia as its own, is just completely absurd. There's all kinds of corruption standards that Ukraine misses out on. And, even the U.S. doesn't really think that they're going to admit Ukraine into NATO within the next 10 years. And that's I think the most optimistic timeline that they could possibly imagine. And so to take NATO membership, and then the other point is that the U.S. has specifically committed to not defending Ukraine. So if you admitted Ukraine into NATO, it would then require the U.S. to defend Ukraine should Russia or any other country invade. And Biden has already said that he ain't going to do that. And so why the hell would you then admit Ukraine into NATO to do something that you said you're not going to do? Right? So it's pretty clear that it's not going to happen. And so this statement from Josh Hawley that is very hawkish in any other way, but saying that, the Biden administration should drop longstanding U.S. support for Ukraine's eventual NATO membership, it should in no way be considered a provocative comment and well within the range of allowable discussion in U.S. foreign policy. And that's absolutely not what happened. The Biden administration, which again doesn't support Ukraine joining NATO, said that Josh Hawley, this is from White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, that he was parroting Russian talking points. And this is insane, it's dangerous, and it is completely irresponsible. And if Trump was doing this, I don't know, because on the Russia issue, everybody got a pass. But an attack like this and questioning somebody's loyalty and things like that is really too far. It's McCarthyite, and it needs to be stopped and shut down and called out, especially because, as I just pointed out, the Biden administration doesn't even support the policy that Hawley is telling them not to support. And so at the very least, they could say, well, in the long run, we still might want to do it or something like that. But this is just the state of the rhetoric. All right, last Russia story. I promise, actually, I mean it this time. And this is good news. Hedge funds are starting to invest in the Russian and Ukrainian economy, and the Russian economy has rebounded. It apparently lost like 30% since late October, and it's back up 10%. So these are pretty significant gains. And there's a quote in here, and this is from a Financial Times article titled "Hedge Funds Bet on Beating Down Russia and Ukraine Assets." And in here, it says, I've talked to a lot of senior people in the Russian state. People are just going about their business. If there was going to be a war, people would be acting in a different way. Everybody is calm. And so people are saying that's good enough for us to invest. And if people are sinking their, millions of dollars into Ukraine and, particularly Ukraine, but Russia as well, that suggests to me that they must be pretty confident that there's not going to be any kind of invasion or war, because I think that would be damaging to both the Russian and Ukrainian economies and likely anybody who's invested in them. One final point here is that, this has all taken a pretty brutal beating on Russia's economy, apparently, this military buildup, and it hasn't been free. And so that may also mean and suggest that Putin is looking for something here because it has cost his country.